John Harris stepped onto the observation deck of Earth's diplomatic station orbiting Jupiter. The massive gas giant filled the view beyond the reinforced glass, its swirling storms a backdrop to the unfolding drama. John checked his watch. 30 minutes until the Galactic Council representatives arrived. His stomach tightened. After 20 years of preparation, everything came down to this meeting. Ambassador, final intelligence report, said Maria Alvarez, sliding a datapad across the polished table. As Earth's top xenobiologist, she had spent the last decade studying the threat. Her normally confident expression showed traces of worry. John scanned the report and frowned. No change in the anomaly's behavior. None. It remains dormant, but our sensors detect increased energy fluctuations. The mining operation the Council approved will definitely disturb it. Maria pulled up a holographic display showing a dark, swirling mass at the edge of the Cygnus arm. We've been monitoring it since before first contact. The previous awakening cycle nearly wiped out 3 of our deep space colonies. The door slid open as Peter Wilson, Earth's military liaison, entered with Commander Susan Lee. Both wore the formal gray uniforms of Earth Defense Forces, decorations minimal as requested by diplomatic protocol. Defense grid is fully operational, Susan reported, her voice low. But if the Council ignores our warning and proceeds with their mining expedition, we can't protect their fleet. They'll be too far beyond our defensive perimeter. John nodded grimly. And they refuse to believe we have technology they don't. Their arrogance may get thousands killed. The station's AI announced the approaching Council shuttle. John straightened his blue diplomatic uniform and addressed his team. Remember, we need to convince them without revealing our full defensive capabilities. The Council still thinks they uplifted us, that we were just primitive humans they generously welcomed to galactic society. Peter snorted. If they only knew we detected their approach 50 years before they discovered us and prepared accordingly. That's our advantage, John replied. They underestimate us. But today, that same arrogance might get them killed if they don't listen. The doors opened to admit the Galactic Council delegation. 7 different species entered, led by High Counselor Rick Svan of the Erathari Dominion. His crystalline exoskeleton glittered under the station lights as his translator converted the clicks and whistles of his speech. Ambassador Harris, the Council appreciates Earth's hospitality, though we are puzzled by the urgency of this meeting. John gestured to the seats arranged around the circular table. Thank you for coming, High Counselor. We have discovered critical information regarding the planned Cygnus mining operation. Once all were seated, Maria activated the main display. Detailed scans of the spatial anomaly appeared, alongside historical data from Earth's encounters. This is not a resource-rich nebula as your surveys indicate, John explained. It's a hibernating entity, a predator that consumes energy, matter, and even the ships that venture too close. Earth encountered it 3 centuries ago. We lost 2 colony vessels before we understood what we faced. High Counselor Rick Svan's crystalline facets shifted in what humans had learned was an expression of dismissal. Earth has been part of galactic civilization for barely 30 years. With respect, your primitive sensors likely misinterpreted natural phenomena. Our technology is more advanced than you realize in certain areas, John countered carefully, particularly in detecting trans-dimensional anomalies. Xerix Hahn, the reptilian representative of the Mining Guild, clicked his scaled fingers dismissively. The Cygnus region has already been approved for resource extraction. The expedition launches in 3 days. Over 300 ships, the largest mining operation this cycle. Which is why we're asking you to cancel it, Susan interjected. Or at minimum, allow Earth vessels to escort the fleet. The Council members exchanged looks that needed no translation. Amused condescension. Your concern is noted, humans, Rick Svan said, rising. But the Council's decision stands. The Cygnus operation proceeds as scheduled. As they filed out, Peter leaned toward John. They're not going to listen, are they? John watched the doors close behind the departing Council members. No, they're not. which means we need to implement the backup plan. Contact Earth Command immediately. Tell them to prepare the Guardian Protocol. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with activity as representatives from over 300 worlds gathered for the emergency session. Massive view screens displayed the Cygnus mining fleet, 300 ships strong, approaching the dark anomaly. John Harris stood quietly at the back of the Earth delegation section, watching council members place bets on how much valuable ore the expedition would extract. Final preparations complete, announced Fleet Admiral Zex Thol, the Polarian commander who had planned the mining operation. His blue-scaled skin gleamed under the chamber lights as he addressed the council. The first extraction drones will deploy in exactly 20 minutes. A small alert chimed on John's communicator. He glanced down to see a message from Earth Command. Guardian Protocol activated. ETA 8 minutes. Maria slid into the seat beside him, her face tense. They're really going through with it. After all our warnings. Pride, John replied quietly. They can't admit a primitive species might know something they don't. On the main screen, the mining fleet formed a precise formation around the anomaly. The dark mass hung against the stars, seemingly inert. Harvester drones detached from the larger ships, moving toward the swirling darkness. Look how stable it is, remarked one council member loudly enough for the Earth delegation to hear. These humans and their superstitions. Maria's fingers tightened around her datapad. They don't understand. The entity feeds on energy first. Those drones are like ringing a dinner bell. The first drone penetrated the outer boundary of the anomaly. For a moment, nothing happened. Admiral Zex Thol turned toward the Earth delegation with a smug expression. Then the darkness shifted. The drone disappeared. Not exploded, not damaged, simply gone, as if it had never existed. A ripple moved through the anomaly. Interesting energy fluctuation, said the Mining Guild representative. Perhaps a natural defense mechanism of the nebula. John stood up. It's waking up. Pull your fleet back immediately. Admiral Zex Thol waved a dismissive hand. A minor setback. Deploy secondary drones with enhanced shields. Before the order could be carried out, a tendril of darkness extended from the anomaly with impossible speed. It touched the nearest mining vessel, a ship carrying over 200 crew members, and the vessel vanished. The council chamber erupted in shocked exclamations. All vessels, retreat, ordered Zex Thol, his earlier confidence evaporating. Emergency FTL jumps. But the entity moved faster than the ships could respond. 3 more vessels disappeared in quick succession. Tendrils of darkness reached out in all directions, growing larger by the second. John activated his official communication channel to the council. This is Ambassador Harris of Earth. We warned you. The entity is now fully awake and hunting. Your ships cannot escape on their own. The council premier turned to him, panic evident in all 4 of his eyes. What can be done? Earth has deployed a defensive vessel. It will arrive momentarily. Get your remaining ships behind it when it appears. 1 ship, scoffed Zex Thol, though fear had replaced his arrogance. Against that. As if in answer, a flash of blue light erupted at the edge of the view screen. A small vessel appeared, sleek, dark, and bearing Earth's insignia. It was barely 1/10 the size of the mining fleet's flagship. This is Captain Lisa Reyes of the Earth Defense Ship Sentinel, came a calm voice over the common channel. All galactic vessels move behind our position immediately. We will create a defensive perimeter. That tiny vessel, gasped the council premier. It will be destroyed instantly. John watched as the Sentinel positioned itself between the entity and the remaining fleet. That tiny vessel, he said quietly, represents technology Earth developed centuries ago, when we first encountered these entities. Technology we offered to share, only to be dismissed as primitive. On screen, the Sentinel began to glow with energy unlike anything in the Council's scientific records. The entity paused its attack, as if sensing a threat for the first time. Captain Lisa Reyes stood firm on the bridge of the Sentinel, her hand steady, as she monitored the ship's defensive systems. The view screen showed the cosmic horror unfolding before them, a writhing mass of darkness that had already consumed 7 mining vessels. "Dimensional anchor engage," reported Chief Engineer Frank Cooper, his fingers dancing across the control panel. "Quantum barrier at maximum power." Lisa nodded. "Deploy containment buoys." Pattern Delta. Outside the ship, small devices shot out in a precise formation, creating a perimeter between the entity and the retreating mining fleet. Each buoy activated with a pulse of blue energy that the entity seemed reluctant to touch. "What is that ship doing?" demanded Admiral Zextfall from the council chamber. The alien's voice came through clearly on the open channel. "Those devices are barely larger than satellites." John Harris stepped forward in the council chamber. "Those satellites generate a dimensional barrier that prevents the entity from feeding. Technology Earth developed after our first encounter with these beings." On the Sentinel, Lisa watched as the entity tested the barrier, a tendril of darkness probing the energy field only to recoil violently. "The entity is contained for now," she reported, "but this is temporary. We need to put it back to sleep or it will eventually break through." "How is this possible?" The council premier's voice shook with disbelief. "Earth has been a spacefaring civilization for less than 5 centuries. You shouldn't have this technology." "We developed it out of necessity," Lisa replied calmly. 300 years ago, this same entity attacked our colonies in the Proxima system. We lost thousands before we understood what we were facing." On the bridge, Science Officer Nickel Davis approached the captain. "The entity's energy signature is stabilizing. It remembers us." Lisa nodded grimly. "It should. We're the only prey that ever fought back." In the council chamber, the representatives watched in stunned silence as the Sentinel began a complex maneuver, releasing pulses of energy that seemed to herd the darkness. The entity thrashed against the barrier but couldn't break through. "I don't understand," said the Mining Guild representative. "If Earth possessed this technology, why keep it secret from the Council?" John exchanged glances with Maria before answering. "We tried to share our knowledge. 3 times we presented evidence of these entities to the Council. 3 times we were dismissed as paranoid primitives. Your scientists claimed our data was flawed, our theories unsound." On the Sentinel's bridge, Lisa received an update from Earth Command. "Captain, 2 additional defense ships are en route. ETA 12 minutes. Guardian Protocol Phase 2 is authorized." "Acknowledged," Lisa replied. She turned to her tactical officer. "Prepare the sleeper probes. We need to drive it back to its dormant state." The Sentinel fired a series of specialized projectiles directly into the heart of the entity. Where they penetrated, the darkness seemed to calm, swirling more slowly. In the council chamber, the alien representatives watched with a mixture of awe and growing humility. The Mining Guild representative leaned toward John. "These entities, how many are there?" "At least 17 that we've mapped," John replied. "All in hibernation, all in regions that Earth has mysteriously been reluctant to develop or allow others to mine." Understanding dawned on the alien's face. "The Antares Prohibited Zone, the Betelgeuse Preservation Area, all contain sleeping entities," confirmed Maria. "We've been monitoring them for centuries, maintaining barriers to ensure they stay dormant." On the view screen, the entity was visibly shrinking, its tendrils withdrawing as the Sentinel's technology forced it back into hibernation. The surviving mining vessels began to regroup at a safe distance. "Phase 1 containment successful," reported Lisa. "Entity returning to dormant state. Preparing long-term monitoring buoys." The council premier turned to the Earth delegation, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of profound respect in his species. "It seems we have gravely misjudged humanity's technological advancement, and perhaps their wisdom as well." John nodded slowly. "Perhaps now you'll understand why Earth has been so insistent about certain regions remaining undeveloped. This isn't the only danger lurking in the darkness between stars." The Emergency Council session stretched into its 5th hour. The massive chamber, usually filled with idle chatter and political maneuvering, remained uncharacteristically silent. On the main view screen, the Sentinel continued its work, joined now by 2 additional Earth vessels that had arrived through what appeared to be some form of dimensional jump. "The containment field is holding," reported Captain Lisa Reyes, her image now displayed on a secondary screen. "The entity is 70% returned to dormancy. Estimated time to complete hibernation: 3 hours." Fleet Admiral Zexful, who had lost 3 personal friends on the destroyed mining vessels, stood with his shoulders slumped. 139 ships lost. Over 12,000 crew members gone. His voice cracked slightly. "And Earth warned us." The Council Premier called for attention. "We must understand exactly what we're facing. Ambassador Harris, would you explain in terms we can all comprehend?" John moved to the central podium, accompanied by Maria. As he passed the Mining Guild representatives, he noticed they couldn't meet his eyes. "The entities exist partially in our dimension and partially in others," John began. "They hibernate for centuries, appearing as spatial anomalies to conventional sensors. When disturbed, they feed on energy, matter, and, for lack of a better term, consciousness." Maria activated a holographic display showing historical records. Earth's first encounter was in 2189, when we were just beginning to colonize our nearest star systems. We lost 3 colony ships before we realized we weren't dealing with a natural phenomenon. The images showed early Earth vessels, primitive compared to current technology, facing a similar darkness in the Proxima Centauri system. "How did you develop countermeasures?" asked the Arxian science director, her feathered crest rising with academic interest. "The dimensional physics involved should be beyond any young species. Desperation drives innovation," John replied simply. "We devoted nearly all our scientific resources to understanding and combating these entities. While the rest of the galaxy was expanding outward, Earth was focused on defending against what we knew lurked in the darkness." On the main screen, the Earth vessels continued their careful work. The entity had shrunk considerably, its tendrils no longer reaching for the surviving mining ships. "The technology you're witnessing," John continued, "creates a field that anchors reality, preventing the entity from pulling ships into the dimensional pocket where it consumes them. The containment buoys establish a perimeter that can't be crossed. The sleeper probes emit precisely calibrated energy signatures that encourage hibernation. Why did we not detect any of this technology during standard scans of Earth vessels?" demanded the Polarian security chief. A small smile crossed John's face. "Because we designed it to be undetectable. When the Galactic Council first contacted Earth, we weren't certain of your intentions. We maintained certain safeguards." In the awkward silence that followed, a communication came through from the Sentinel. "Phase 2 complete," reported Lisa. "Entity is 95% contained. We're detecting normal spacetime parameters resuming in the affected area." The council chamber erupted in relief murmurs. "There's something I don't understand," said the Arxian science director. "If Earth possessed this advanced technology, why maintain the pretense of being technological inferiors? You could have demanded a much higher position in the council hierarchy." John looked around the chamber before answering. "Because humanity learned something important during our isolation. Power isn't about dominance, it's about responsibility. We didn't want to rule the galaxy. We wanted to protect it." The council premier approached John, performing the formal bow of profound apology recognized across all council species. "On behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer our deepest regrets for dismissing Earth's warnings. Had we listened, those 12,000 souls might still be alive." John nodded solemnly. "What matters now is what we do next. This entity will sleep again, but there are others, and Earth cannot monitor them all alone anymore." "What are you proposing?" asked the Premier. "A new galactic defense initiative," John replied. "With Earth sharing its defensive technology, and the Council finally listening to our maps of where the other entities sleep." A week after the Cygnus incident, Earth's diplomatic station orbiting Jupiter buzzed with unprecedented activity. Representatives from every major galactic power had arrived to discuss the newly proposed Galactic Defense Initiative. John Harris stood at the window of his office, watching as yet another diplomatic shuttle docked. Seventh delegation today, Maria noted, handing him a datapad. The Arxians, Polarians, and even the Xanthari Union want priority access to our dimensional barrier technology. John scrolled through the requests with a frown. Everyone wants the technology. Few seem interested in understanding the responsibility that comes with it. His office door slid open as Peter Wilson entered, followed by Captain Lisa Reyes, now a reluctant celebrity across galactic space. Her uniform bore the marks of exhaustion, but her eyes remained sharp. The Sentinel has completed its sweep of the Cygnus sector, Lisa reported. The entity is fully dormant again, but we've established a permanent monitoring station. Nothing will approach it without triggering multiple alerts. Peter laid out a star chart on John's desk. We've received 17 formal apologies from the Council regarding the zones they previously mocked us for protecting. They're now requesting complete maps of all entity locations. And therein lies our dilemma, John said, gesturing for everyone to sit. How much do we share? How quickly? The Council ignored us before. What prevents them from doing so again once the shock wears off? Lisa leaned forward. The mining fleet survivors are spreading their stories throughout galactic space. The footage of the Sentinel facing down that entity has become the most viewed recording in Council history. They can't dismiss us now. No, but they can misuse what we give them, Maria cautioned. Some species might attempt to weaponize the entities rather than contain them. The room fell silent as they considered this possibility. Outside, Jupiter's swirling storms provided a fitting backdrop to their troubled thoughts. We need safeguards, John finally said. Controls on how and when our technology is shared. A soft chime announced the arrival of the Council Premier and his delegation. John straightened his uniform and nodded to his team. Let's see if the Council is truly ready to listen. The Premier entered with considerably less pomp than his previous visits. Behind him came Admiral Zex Thull, the Arxian Science Director, and representatives from 5 other major powers. Ambassador Harris, the Premier began formally. The Council has unanimously approved the formation of the Galactic Defense Initiative, with Earth taking a leadership role. John nodded politely. We're pleased to hear that, Premier. We request immediate access to all dimensional containment technology and complete maps of entity locations, the Premier continued. That won't be possible, John replied calmly. The delegation stirred in surprise. The Arxian Science Director's feathers ruffled in agitation. You refuse to share your knowledge. After what happened? Lisa stepped forward. Not refuse. But we won't simply hand over technologies that took us centuries to develop without proper protocols in place. John activated a holographic display showing a detailed education and training program. Earth proposes a phased approach. First, we establish joint monitoring stations at all known entity locations. Second, we train your scientists and engineers in the fundamental principles of dimensional physics. Third, we co-develop next-generation containment systems. That could take years, protested the Mining Guild representative. It took Earth decades, John countered. But we're willing to accelerate the process. What we won't do is provide technology that could be misused before the underlying science is properly understood. Admiral Zex Thull, who had remained quiet until now, raised a hand. Ambassador Harris is right. I lost friends to our arrogance. We should not compound that error with impatience. The Premier studied the proposed program carefully. Your terms are not what we expected. Earth doesn't seek control, Premier, John explained. We seek partnership. These entities have existed for millions of years. They'll continue to exist long after all our civilizations are gone. Our responsibility is to ensure they remain dormant, not just for our sake, but for all who come after us. The Premier slowly nodded. Then let us begin. Not as teacher and student, but as allies against a common threat. 3 months after the Cygnus incident, the first Joint Earth Council monitoring station went active. Built at the edge of the Arcturus system, it housed the most advanced sensor array ever created through cooperative effort. John Harris stood on the observation deck, watching as technicians from 7 different species worked together, calibrating equipment designed to detect the slightest dimensional fluctuation. Impressive progress, noted Council Premier Thulfor, who had made the journey personally to witness this historic moment. 3 months ago, most Council species didn't even accept the existence of these entities. Now we have 20 monitoring stations under construction. John nodded. Necessity is a powerful motivator. Though I wish it hadn't taken such a tragedy to bring us here. Below them on the operations floor, Captain Lisa Rice was conducting a training session with officers from various galactic fleets. A holographic simulation showed the proper deployment of containment buoys around a simulated entity. "Your Captain Rice is quite remarkable," observed the Premier. "She's become something of a legend among the younger officers." "She carries a heavy burden," John replied. "She was there during our second encounter with an entity 15 years ago. Lost her brother and several close friends." The Premier's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture of respectful understanding. "Is that common among your defense personnel?" "Personal experience with these horrors." "More common than we'd like," John admitted. Earth's expansion into space was marked by these encounters. It shaped our development as a species. A soft alert chimed throughout the station. Both men turned as Maria hurried toward them, her expression concerned. "We're detecting unusual readings from the Orion monitoring buoys," she reported. "Nothing critical yet, but the pattern matches pre-awakening signs." The Premier stiffened. "Orion? There's a major trade route through that sector." "Which is why we've been monitoring it closely for decades," John said. "Maria, notify Earth Command. Have them dispatch a containment team as a precaution." As Maria left to carry out his instructions, the Premier turned to John. "You knew about an entity in Orion and didn't inform the Council immediately." "We included it in our 3rd report to the Council 8 years ago," John replied evenly. "It was dismissed as inconclusive data from primitive sensors." The Premier had the grace to look embarrassed. "I see. Perhaps we should review those old reports more carefully." On the operations floor, an alert appeared on the main screen. Lisa immediately ended her training session and moved to the central console. "Ambassador," she called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the Sentinel. They've detected unusual energy emissions from the Cygnus entity. It's still dormant, but something's agitating it." John and the Premier joined her at the console. "Could it be responding to the Orion anomaly?" John asked. "Possible," Lisa replied. "These entities exist partially outside normal spacetime. They may be able to sense each other across vast distances." The Premier looked alarmed. "Are you suggesting they could coordinate, awaken simultaneously?" "We don't know," John admitted. "That's why the defense initiative is so crucial. We need to understand them better." Lisa pulled up a galactic map showing all known entity locations. 17 red dots glowed across the spiral arms. For centuries, Earth monitored these alone. Now we have help. The Premier studied the map thoughtfully. "When you first joined the Council, many questioned why humans were so cautious about expansion, so selective about where you established colonies. Now we understand." John nodded. "We went to the stars carrying the knowledge that we weren't alone, and that not everything in the darkness was benign. A lesson the Council has now learned as well," the Premier acknowledged, "at great cost." A communications officer approached them. "Ambassador Harris, Captain Rice, Earth Command confirms deployment of containment vessels to Orion. ETA 3 hours." Lisa straightened her uniform. "I should join them. The Orion anomaly has unique properties we haven't fully mapped." The Premier watched her prepare to leave. "You humans continue to surprise me. Most species would have used this technology to dominate the Council, yet you seek only cooperation." John smiled slightly. "When you faced the darkness, Premier, you learn the value of standing together. 1 year after the Cygnus incident, representatives from all council worlds gathered on Earth for the first time. The Great Assembly Hall in Geneva had been expanded to accommodate delegates of various sizes, atmospheric requirements, and gravitational preferences. At the center stood a memorial, a dark obelisk listing the names of those lost when the entity awoke. John Harris adjusted his formal diplomatic attire as he prepared to address the assembly. Outside the windows, snowflakes drifted down onto the Swiss landscape. "Nervous?" asked Maria, joining him in the preparation room. "A little," John admitted. "First time all 327 council species have sent representatives to Earth. Even the isolationist Confederation is here." The door opened as Lisa Reyes entered, now wearing the insignia of Admiral, the youngest in Earth's defense forces. Her year commanding joint containment missions had earned her the respect of even the most skeptical alien military leaders. "The Orion entity is fully dormant again," she reported. "The Joint Earth-Polarian Containment Team established permanent barriers yesterday." John nodded. "Good timing. Any news from the Arcturus station?" "All quiet," Lisa replied. "The new detection grid is performing beyond expectations. We can now sense pre-awakening signs up to 3 weeks earlier than our previous systems." A soft chime indicated it was time. The three of them walked together toward the assembly hall. As they entered, the gathered delegates fell silent. Species that had once dismissed humans as primitives now stood in respect. Council Premier Thalvor approached and performed the formal greeting of equals, a gesture that would have been unthinkable a year ago. "Ambassador Harris," the Premier said, "the Council is ready to hear Earth's assessment." John took his place at the central podium. Behind him, a massive display activated, showing a galactic map with all known entity locations. 1 year ago, John began, the galaxy witnessed the consequences of ignoring warnings about forces beyond our understanding. Today, I'm pleased to report that through our combined efforts, all 17 known entities remain dormant and contained. Approving murmurs rippled through the assembly. "The Galactic Defense Initiative has established monitoring stations at each location," John continued. "Over 800 personnel from 32 species now serve in containment teams. The knowledge Earth guarded alone for centuries is now shared among trusted allies." He gestured to a section of the display showing technical schematics. "Phase 2 of our technology sharing begins today. The fundamental principles of dimensional barrier generation will be provided to Council scientific teams. Together, we'll develop the next generation of containment systems." The Arxian science director stood. "Earth has fulfilled every promise made after the Cygnus incident. The Council acknowledges its debt to humanity's foresight." John smiled slightly. "Not a debt, Director. A partnership." He advanced the display to show unexplored regions of the galaxy. "But our work is just beginning. Earth's long-range sensors have detected anomalies consistent with dormant entities in at least 12 additional locations. Some lie along planned expansion routes for several Council species." A concerned murmur spread through the assembly. "We don't bring this news to cause alarm," John continued, "but to demonstrate why the Defense Initiative must become permanent. The darkness between stars hides many secrets, some beautiful, some deadly." The Mining Guild representative rose next. "After Cygnus, we reviewed all planned extraction operations. 23 have been canceled due to proximity to potential entities. The economic impact is substantial, but the alternative is unacceptable." John nodded in acknowledgement. "Which is why Earth proposes the establishment of a joint research division within the initiative, not just to contain these entities, but to understand them. Perhaps someday, to communicate with them." This suggestion caused visible surprise among many delegates. "You believe that's possible?" asked the Premier. "We don't know," John replied honestly. "But we do know they're intelligent in ways we don't yet comprehend. They've existed for millions of years, perhaps billions. They may possess knowledge beyond our imagination." He looked around at the gathered representatives of hundreds of worlds. 1 year ago, The council learned that humanity was not as primitive as they believed. Today, we all acknowledge that compared to these entities, perhaps all our civilizations are primitive. But together, we're learning. Together, we're growing stronger. The assembly rose in unanimous agreement. As the formal proceedings concluded, Lisa approached John. "Not bad for the primitives who couldn't possibly understand spatial anomalies," she said with a smile.